Welcome to Paranomious, where the shadows whisper and true stories blur the line between reality and nightmare. Every encounter shared here is real and far more disturbing than fiction. Dare to listen? In the quiet heart of the Smoky Mountains, wrapped in a veil of mist and silence, lived a woman whose life was more poetry than prose. Her presence was soft and steady, like a stream flowing over smooth stones, calm, constant, and unshakably grounded in the earth around her. She wasn't flashy or dramatic. She didn't chase fame or fortune. But to those who knew her, she radiated something deeper, something spiritual, something eternal, the kind of person who felt more like a place than a person. She spent her entire life in those mountains, her home surrounded by towering trees, old wooden fences, and the familiar hum of crickets after sundown. Her days were filled with tending to the land, watching the weather roll over the hills, and pouring quiet wisdom into her family like warm tea into a waiting cup. And then, one day, she was simply done. There was no illness, no screaming, no grand event, just a soft moment in time. She turned to her family and said gently, "I'm tired." Those two words. Simple, undramatic. She stood up, walked to her room with the grace of someone finishing a song, and lay down on her bed. She never woke up. Just like that, she slipped away, not in chaos, but in peace. No alarms, no gasps, no drawn-out struggle for breath. Just silence, as though she had always known exactly when to leave. As though death wasn't something she feared, but something she welcomed like an old friend. But that's only where the story starts. The next morning, the narrator's mother began the long drive from Texas to Tennessee. The weight of loss hung heavy, but there was no sense of panic, only a strange, aching quiet. A whisper on the wind that something larger had just occurred. Something sacred. When she arrived, the house was still. Grief had already begun to settle into the corners of the rooms like fog over the mountains. Her brother met her at the door, his voice low. "You should go into her room," he said. She hesitated, unsure, unwilling. But something in his tone pulled her forward. She stepped into the room. And that's when it hit her. Not sorrow, not memory. Fragrance. A powerful wave of scent that wrapped itself around her like invisible silk. Gardenias. Not subtle, not background, but intense. Almost alive. The kind of fragrance that demanded attention. Too strong to ignore, too pure to dismiss. It filled the entire space. The walls, the furniture, the bedsheets. Even the air itself. It was so heavy and unnatural. She stumbled out of the room, blinking in confusion. "Who sprayed perfume?" she asked aloud. But the response from the family froze her in her tracks. No one did. No one had brought flowers. No one had touched any perfume. There were no scented candles, no potpourri, no oils, no sprays. And gardenias? Not a single one grew near the house. Not in July. Not in Tennessee. Yet the scent remained. Not for minutes. Not even for hours. It stayed for weeks. Lingering. Surrounding. Clinging to the space like a memory made physical. It was as though something unseen had moved through the room. Something holy. Something divine. As if the boundary between worlds had blurred, and a bit of heaven had spilled into their reality. That night, the air still thick with mystery, the narrator's younger brother shared something that made the hair on everyone's neck stand straight. He had a dream. Or at least, that's how he tried to describe it. But even he knew, it was something more. In that dream, their grandmother appeared to him. Not in the form of an old woman. Not tired. Not sick. But radiant. She glowed, not like a special effect, but like a soul illuminated from within. Her eyes sparkled. Her skin looked young again. And her smile. It held the kind of warmth that could undo 100 winters. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her presence alone said everything. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm at peace. And then, just as suddenly, she was gone. Now, some people might chalk that up to grief. A coping mechanism. The mind seeking closure. But if that were the case, how do you explain the scent? How do you explain weeks of floral perfume that no one could trace? How do you explain the stillness? The dream? The way she simply knew when to leave? Months passed. The scent eventually faded. Life moved forward, as life always does. But the memory remained carved into the family's collective heart. And when the narrator finally shared the story, far from the mountains, back in Texas, they thought nothing of it. Just an anecdote, a strange and beautiful goodbye. But their friend's reaction would change everything. She was an older woman, practical, not prone to flights of fancy. But as soon as the narrator described the gardenias, her entire demeanor changed. Her face drained of color. Her hand covered her mouth. And then, with a trembling voice, she whispered, "That happened to me too. Years ago, there was a local woman who sold farm fresh eggs. Every week, she'd come by, hand deliver a basket, chat for a few minutes, and be on her way. They weren't close friends, but there was a kindness between them, a ritual. One day, the woman arrived as usual. But something was different. Her voice was quieter, her face a little pale. I'm not feeling well," she said. "Just a bit tired." She handed over the eggs and left. A few minutes later, the house changed. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the air filled with a strange floral scent. Thick, choking, unplaceable. It wasn't roses. It wasn't lilac. It wasn't lavender. It was something else. Haunting, beautiful, and completely overpowering. It poured through every room like smoke. It was so intense that the family had to open all the windows and step outside. They had no idea where it had come from. Until the phone rang. It was her husband. She had passed away. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. Except, perhaps, for the scent. 2 stories. 2 deaths. 2 unexplainable clouds of overwhelming perfume. These aren't accidents. These aren't coincidences. This is a pattern. In spiritual circles, some believe that when a soul leaves the body in peace, it leaves behind a signature, a footprint of the divine, a marker, not always visible, but sometimes smellable. Scents are powerful. They are tied directly to memory, to emotion, to the very core of how we experience life. And maybe, just maybe, they are also tied to death. Because what else can explain this? No one sprayed anything. No one planted anything. And yet the fragrance was there. So real, it could not be denied. Could it be that in the moment a soul leaves its vessel, it passes through something sacred? A realm of spirit, perhaps. A place where time has no meaning. Where beauty is not seen, but felt. Where peace has a scent, and that scent is left behind as a final message. I made it. I am free. The narrator never forgot what happened. Nor did the friend. And maybe, you haven't either. Maybe, just maybe, you've smelled something that shouldn't have been there. Maybe you felt the presence of someone who was already gone. Maybe the air shifted, the temperature dropped, or a scent wrapped around you like a whisper from the past. If so, then you understand. You know that not everything can be explained. Some things, especially the most sacred things, refuse to be measured or studied. They simply are. And if you've never had such an experience, consider this. There may come a time, in your quietest hour, when you find yourself surrounded by a scent you can't explain. And when that happens, listen closely, because it just might be someone you loved saying goodbye. Or perhaps, even more chilling, someone waiting to say hello. Have you ever smelled something that made no sense? In a moment of loss or silence? Have you ever felt like someone from beyond the veil reached out to you with something subtle, but unforgettable? Let us know in the comments below. These moments are sacred. They deserve to be told. And when we share them, we realize just how many of us have brushed up against the unknown. If you believe in honoring the mysteries of life, death, and everything in between, like, subscribe, and share this video. It helps the stories reach the ones who need to hear them most. This is Paranomious, where truth walks with the supernatural. And sometimes, the air itself carries a message.